Welcome everyone to our first edition of Pressbox. I'm your host Larry Reitler, and each week we're going to be bringing you a unique perspective to you, the fan of Kenosha, because everybody who's going to be on this show at one time or another has either had radio or television and has done a game from the Pressbox. So the idea of this show is to focus on the local teams, and obviously we're in football season. So we're going to concentrate heavily on this show on some of the area teams, the county teams, and then we'll focus on the local teams. We'll focus on the local teams in the playoffs, and we'll also talk about some of the state matchups that are going to be going on this week in the state of Wisconsin. But without further ado, two gentlemen who pretty much join me in the press box every week. One I work with, one I get to hear in my ear every once in a while. But the man to my left is Mr. Tom Roders, who is no stranger to anyone who's a fan of Bradford football, Bradford sports, and of course my partner the last 2 years on WLIP. Tom, welcome to Pressbox.
Larry, my pleasure. Nice to be here with you.
All right, and the other gentleman joining us on the set for this inaugural show, a guy who has more energy, and he doesn't even need Red Bull. And Kevin's here. Kevin, is Bill a Red Bull guy, or just he's just that way? He's just that way. All right. Bill Fritz, who is the voice of Gateway Sports Web, who does how many games a year, Bill? Basketball and football?
A lot.
A lot. All right. Bill is here, and we'll be listening to his commentary and his take really on the game, because you know, being in the press box, we have the unique perspective because we get to talk to the coaches, the players, and we get really report not only just play-by-play and color, but we're really bringing the game from a different perspective because we see it from the press box, and we have to look at things just a little bit differently. So that's the goal of this show, and I think you'll enjoy it. All right, let's get right into it. The county teams this year in football, Shoreland. It was a tough year for them. They started out great, guys. They won their first three, then they lost their next three, and then they went 2-3 the rest of the season. They finished very oddly, but Tom, this is a team that we saw play at Dominican, and we were very impressed with the talent that they had on the field.
Well, Larry, you got two divisions in the Midwest Classic Conference, and of course, Shoreland plays in a tougher division. You just take a look at St. Joe and St. Catherine's. St. Catherine's finishing first in the conference, St. Joe second in the conference, and they're both moving on to level 2 play. So they had a very tough schedule, and I thought they did a real nice job early in the year, but ran into some real tough opponents toward the end of the season. Yeah,
and Billy had a brand new coach this year, and we were very impressed with the job that he did.
Yeah, longtime assistant, 5-year assistant under head coach Mark Stein, who took a job to go to Minneapolis, guys. And Mark Stein was a class act. He really got that program going, guys, and I thought he did a great job, but he had an opportunity to advance. But going back to Paul, he had some bad luck. Their starting quarterback, senior honorable mention Clay Rust, went down early in the season for Shoreland, failed to make the playoffs. Last year they went to the playoffs and lost in first-round action, guys, to Waterloo, 42-25. I think the program, as you mentioned, had a tough year this year, guys, but I think they're on the upswing with this young coach. His enthusiasm will get this team going in the right direction.
Yeah, and one thing we have to remember with Shoreland, this is a team or a program that's still, if you look at the area teams, it's the youngest kid on the block, so very impressed how they're going. All right, Westosha, just a horrible year. I mean, just really think about it. They had the 2 wins, but they ended up 2-7, 2-5. Bill, we'll speak to this team because we're probably a little more versed on them. Tyler Soxon is a guy who came in, 1,500 yards passing, almost 600 yards rushing, but they were very depleted in talent from last year to this year.
They were a 3-game winner in 2009, guys, and under head coach Scott Merck's 6th year, put in a different system this year. Normally they like to run that veer offense, but they ran a lot out of the 3-set, 4-set in the backfield and did a lot of running. Had some injuries early, guys, struggled against some of their top-notch opponents. Wasn't a good year. In fact, they got walloped by Wilmot earlier this year, 52-14. Just a tough year for the Westosha program. But again, kind of like what we talked about with Shoreland, guys, I think it can only go back up for this Westosha Central Falcon team.
Very tough conference, Larry. Again, you had Badger, you had Wilmot, you had Waterford, tri-champions. So week in and week out, you're playing a top-notch team in southeastern Wisconsin.
How good, Tom, do you think this the Southern Lakes Conference is actually good. But you can look at Wilmot, Badger. I mean, this is a conference who's been down for a while, but it looks like, especially this year and into next year, could really make some noise around the state of Wisconsin.
Well, I think with the realignment and bringing Burlington back into the Southeastern Conference has really boosted the competition. And Waterford, Wilmot, and the third champion there responded very, very well. So Badger, very good option team. And as Bill is saying, a lot of injuries early in the year to Westosha. And when you run an option offense, that's when injuries really hurt.
All right, and we've got about a minute left in this segment, but we'll briefly touch on Wilmot because they're a county team, and we'll talk about them much more as the playoffs go. But Grinke's doing a great job out there. What a turnaround on this program. A great talent in Chris Nelson. And Tom, I've bent his ear all year about this kid, but Tom, he's the real deal.
Well, he is, and he's got a scholarship offer from Eastern Illinois. He's been compared to Tony Romo by one scout. I'm not saying he's going to be the next Tony Romo, but he certainly is going to get a lot of looks. And the farther Wilmot can go in the tournament, I think the more exposure he'll get, and some of these offers will be coming in later than sooner.
What a job Wilmot's done, guys, really quickly. 5-5 last year overall, 4-3, made the playoffs for the first time, lost to the Forest. Chris Nelson, the real deal. No question about it.
Yeah, I'm anxious to see. I would love to see them knock off Waterford for a second straight time.
They beat them earlier, right?
Yeah, we'll talk about that as the playoff goes. We'll talk playoffs. In the next segment, we're going to focus on the city teams. More of Pressbox after this. Welcome back to Pressbox. I'm Larry Reitler with Tom Roders and Bill Fritsch on this inaugural edition. And we just covered the county teams, and now we're going to talk about the city teams and the year that they had. And the first team up is Tremper. And Tom, this is a team that had a lot of key injuries. You know, Tony O'Gully went down, lighting went down, and it was really a tough, they had, I'll say, tough injuries at the wrong time for this team. Not that there's any good time to have an injury.
Well, he certainly did. I don't think we've seen a player like Tony O'Gully on both sides of the football control the game, Larry, like he is capable of doing so. And when they lost Tony O'Gully, they had to replace him with people that were capable of playing, but not to his level. And I think also, as you mentioned, losing lighting at linebacker was a key. And they just lost too many people at too many key positions.
Yeah, and one of the things that was very impressive to me was the how Connor Patty stepped up and matured as a quarterback. You know, the thing about Gully, if you look at his numbers, he had obviously less rushing numbers this year, 100 less carries, but Billy still scored 23 touchdowns this year and 21 last year.
He was Mr. Excitement, kind of like what Bradford had last year with Melvin Gordon. You never know, anytime this guy, Gully, would get the football in his hands, big things would be expected. Not only, we talked about this off the air, not only was Gully great on the offensive side, not a bad linebacker either, Larry. He could put a wallop on the would-be runner. And you were talking about guys that were trying to replace Tony O'Gully. Anderson did an adequate job, but he's no Tony O'Gully. And guys, get this. Tremper had made the playoffs under Frank Matrice and programs 21 straight years. That streak was snapped this year in a disappointing season, 5 wins overall and 3 wins in conference play. And not only that, last year, get this, guys, they were in the quarterfinal last year against Bradford, losing a tough one at Amici Field, 28-14. So how far they dropped from last year in the quarterfinals and this year, not even making the playoffs.
Yeah, and Coach Matrice, again, him and his staff, offensive coordinator Mark Ujic, just I thought last year, great coaching job, and to keep the team together this year and overcome injuries, especially to key players, always tough. And hats off to Coach Matrice and his team for doing that this year. St. Joe's. What can you say about this team? Tom, you know, you go back to the great teams of, who am I thinking of? Boy, name the names
Coach
of great players who played.
Tommy Regner, 1963, University of Notre Dame, Houston Oilers.
Had to get
I can go way back, Larry.
But St. Joe's, again, a great season. And the emergence of a junior running back in Chris Madden. almost 800 yards, Bill, in 2 games.
Yeah, I had a chance to talk to Chris Madden after the ball game. We did that game this past Saturday, and he was very modest, guys. He told me, it wasn't me. I got the opportunity to get the running position a couple of weeks ago. They told me, hey, Chris, you're up now. And he said, well, it wasn't for the offensive line and the coaching staff, he wouldn't be able to do what he did. And just hearing that from a kid that's just did remarkable. How many players in 2 games over 800 yards? I mean, that's unheard of, even in the high school level, guys. 800 yards, just think, in 2 games. And I forgot how many touchdowns, 17 or 18, unbelievable. In fact, Saturday he had a modest 121 yards, but he still ended up with 2 big carries to really get St. Joe's on the right lift.
You know, and Tommy, you look at this Lancer team, and they're doing it all with some key subtractions from this team. The quarterback and Neville not on the team this year. Hernandez. So, again, excellent coaching job.
Well, they did an excellent coaching job, and, you know, we forget that they went for that 2-point conversion against Racine St. Catharines, so they missed that opportunity. But that negative, I think, turned into positive, too, because with Coach Kenesey going for those 2 points, he gave his team a lot of confidence, which I think really parlayed into an excellent season. They only had 2 losses on the season, and one was the Racine St. Catharines.
Guys, real quick. They're on a 6-game winning streak. And like you mentioned, Coach, their last loss was that devastating 7-6 loss at St. Cat's. Coach Kenesey told me before the game, that was motivational, guys, and really has helped them out. They're going to be a rude awakening for some team in the playoffs, and hopefully you'll be the next round.
Right.
Yeah. Mike and Fred Vernizzi out there smiling somewhere. I know that. All right, hey, Bradford, you know, how many times can we say it? They came in, they overcame an injury to their top running back, Vontae Jackson. But Tom, you live in that environment every day over there at Bradford, and what a job Coach Kennedy did. But it really is a testament to the team, the players, and the system over there at Bradford.
Really a team concept. Larry, you lose Vontae Jackson, probably one of the best running backs in the state of Wisconsin. But as we were talking earlier, they have 6 guys that are in the vicinity of gaining 500 yards. So as Bill said earlier, any team that's trying to prepare to stop Bradford has a real difficult choice, because if you stop Swisher, then you got to worry about Cabrera. You stop Cabrera, then you got to worry about Myers, and it goes on and on and on.
Last year, guys, when they lost to Waukesha West, that was the 2nd year in a row that they lost to the eventual state champions. Now get this stat. In 5 years under head coach Jed Kennedy, since he took over for Mike Bartholomew, 58-11 overall in 5 years. That's including the playoff victory against Milwaukee Pulaski. Southeastern Conference, not bad either, 43-6. Jed Kennedy, just a remarkable guy to talk to. Some people think that he's a little, but I'll tell you what.
Cocky, you can say it.
Yeah, he's right.
Cocky,
he's honest, and he's able to back it up, guys. Yeah. And I like his philosophy, and I'll tell you what. He really gets the best out of his players, as you said, Coach.
I think his confidence overrides his arrogance, if that's what people want to say.
Okay.
Well, you know, it ain't bragging if you can't back it up, right, guys? Well, Bill, you know, you and I get a chance to talk to Coach Kennedy before the game for those interviews, and you can really gauge his level of excitement, his level of intensity just on those interviews, can't you?
Oh, no question about it. And I think he exemplifies what the Bradford Red Devils are all about. He gets the best out of what he's got. I mean, guys, Wentz went down on the defense, Ziegler went down, and they don't miss a beat. The Agopians are stepping up. I mean, Nash, you could go on and on and on. I'm sure I'm missing more players that have really been key. Quenzel Murphy keeps plugging along. Offense, as you said, Coach Swisher. What a job he's done. DeBartolo graduates, goes out of college, and in comes Zach Swisher, who never got the opportunity the last 2 years, a senior, and what a year he's done. Congratulations.
Sorry, we saw their depth the other night against Pulaski. When they went with their 2s and 3s, they really didn't miss much of a beat.
Yeah, you got Draven Lafayette coming in as a third backup quarterback. And it's going to be exciting next year, folks, if you're a Bradford fan, to watch this kid, because he can throw the football. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about a little bit of the state playoffs and some of the key matchups in each of the divisions as we come back with more of Pressbox. Welcome back to Pressbox. You know, I hesitate because I don't want to call it the Pressbox because it's Pressbox. It's kind of like share. Anyway, it's just Pressbox. But we want to talk about the division playoffs. And you know, the last couple of years in the state of Wisconsin, a lot of people know my leanings as far as you know, watching other states and schools play. But I got to tell you, I have been so impressed with the level of football in the state of Wisconsin, and probably I'll go back the last 5 years, and you know, excluding the runs by Tremper, but I think that the state of Wisconsin now is a state to be reckoned with as far as high school football, Tom. You know, it seemed like the Arrowheads dominated every year, the Homesteads, but I think we've got now a little bit of parity in the state of Wisconsin, Tom, and you can speak to this because you've seen much more high school football than I have.
Well, I don't think there's any doubt, Larry, and I think a lot of it has to do with the performance of the University of Wisconsin, the performance of UW-Whitewater. I think everything trickles down. Kids see Wisconsin play, kids see Whitewater having success, and success breeds success at every given level.
What I'm excited about, guys, Franklin this year, for the first time, they're a D1 school, but they play in the D2 playoffs. This year, they're in the D1s.
Oh, yeah.
So who knows? If Bradford, we'll talk about that. If they can get by Muskego, we'll get to that. But Franklin and Bradford could meet again. I mean, this could be a playoffs with many teams meeting each other again. And you're going to talk about that, and the other two teams are local teams. I'm really intrigued, Larry, with the overall matchups that's coming up, especially in the second round. And I mean, it's too bad that these key matchups are happening, but for us, as being in the press box, it's darn exciting.
Right.
Yeah, Tom, I want to speak to you very quickly. There was a little bit of controversy at the start of this playoffs, and it seems to be a numbers game now because you had some teams actually getting into the playoffs and moving into a division just strictly on enrollment.
Well, that's right, Larry. I think Bill brought up a good point. Not only is Franklin playing in Division I, but Kimberly's playing in Division I. Kimberly's been in playoffs the last 10 years, and they've played in 3 different divisions. So anything goes when you line up the schools, largest to smallest, top 224 teams. One thing that I really was shocked by, there's only 3 unseeded teams in the second round in both Division I and Division II. So despite the fact what a lot of people had to say about how the WIAA matched up people in level 1 play, you only really have 6, in quote, upsets in the first round in Division I, Division II.
All right, let's go to those the bracketing in Division I. And those of you who used to watch me before, I'm 50 now, so I got to go to the glasses. So, all right, well, we talked about Franklin knocking off Marquette. And, Tom, I don't know if you really call that an upset. Franklin beat them twice this year. This is a very good football team. Of course, they were great last year. Lance Barrett's in it. But they've got to play, their matchup in this second round is against a very, very good Brookfield Central team.
Well, they have a good football team, Larry Franklin. They made a switch at quarterback about 2/3 of the way through the year, and that's changed things. But they knocked off Marquette twice, and they beat Marquette in the playoffs at Hart Park, which is the home field for Marquette. So Franklin is a good program. They're a good football team, and I'll tell you what, they'll give Brookfield Central all they can handle.
Key for Franklin, guys, is their defense. Their head coach, don't forget, who took over this year, was a defensive coordinator for many years with the Franklin Sabres, and he's seen everything. I had a chance to talk to him after we did the Bradford game when Bradford went down to Franklin, shut them out 25-0, and this guy gets everything he can out of all his players on the defensive side, and you're going to see that in the playoffs. What do they say in playoffs? It's not so much offense, defense wins football games. Franklin, to me, we talk about Bradford being a very dangerous team. Franklin Sabres in D1, it's going to be intriguing and exciting, and they're a dangerous team, no question.
And Brookfield Century is loaded offensively, so it'll be interesting. Other Division I matchups that are going to get a lot of looks around is that very tough, and again, I think we talk about Verona every season, but Verona and Arrowhead. What a great matchup that's going to be, Tom, in the next round.
Right. When you got Arrowhead that's unseeded, and they're one of the 3 teams that went out playing Verona, that's probably one of the top games in the state this year. And Verona is very, very explosive offensively. Went through the Big 8 without a hitch, 9-0 on the season. Did not play a non-conference game because the Big 8 now has 10 teams.
And Bill, talk about your home team, They're in the playoffs still.
Manitowoc, but one note on Verona, Larry, real quick. They have seniors loaded on that offensive side, and their quarterback is being recruited by a lot of D1 schools. Great arm, great skill on the passing, great touch. But Manitowoc, I'm excited. I went to high school there. I played way back when with Don Davey, an ex-Green Bay Packer, and God, way back when. But the Shipbuilders are really having a great year. They've got a great young quarterback. Well, I shouldn't say young. He's a senior quarterback, and a wide receiver, a junior, being recruited by a lot of teams in D1. I'm excited about this. They have a tough matchup, guys, though, and let's see what they can do against Sussex Hamilton. And it's going to be a very tough matchup, but the Ships have been on a roll. Let's see what they can do in this one.
One of the great nicknames in the state of Wisconsin, along with the Cheesemakers.
You know, Larry, there's a sleeper in this D1 thing. Not really a sleeper, but it's Wisconsin Rapids. Yes. They lost their first game of the year, but they had 6 guys out in that game against Hudson, who is Bradford's second opponent. So I'm looking at Wisconsin Rapids really to be tough in that north and western part of the state.
Now on this show, because you know, we can get away with it, we're not really going to make any predictions on here. But you know, a lot of people around the state, and when you go to wisports.org, a lot of people, Tom, have Bradford. In fact, 10 of the writers polled, 4 or 5 of them have Bradford in the state championship.
Well, I don't know if they're going to get there, Larry, or not, but I do know this. The Southeastern Conference this year, in my opinion, was a lot stronger than it's been the last couple of years. I mean, you had Racine Park, who we saw against Bradford in Week 9, and Oak Creek, who I thought were solid football teams that just missed making the playoffs. So I think part of that is the fact that people realize that the Southeast Conference from 1 through 5 or 6 is a little stronger than they've been the last couple of years.
Don't forget, Muskego, Franklin, and Bradford are all still alive, guys, in the playoffs.
Right.
You know, when we come back on Pressbox, we're going to talk about the 3 teams from the area that are still into round 2. Of course, that's Wilmot, St. Joe's, and the Bradford Red Devils. After this, with more on Pressbox. Welcome back to Pressbox. Larry Reitler here along with Tom Roders and Bill Fritz. And we're going to cover the 3 teams now that are still in the playoffs. And guys, let's go right out to the west in Wilmot. A big win over South Milwaukee in their first contest. And they've got to play Waterford again. They knocked them off the first time, 14-10. Tom, how tough is it to play an opponent the second time and come out of there with another W?
Well, it's very, very tough. In football, 2 games is like in basketball, 3 games, in my opinion, Larry. Although we talked about Chris Nelson, I think Chris Nelson is good enough so that Wilmot can win this ball game, but it's not going to be easy. A lot of people forget they beat a very strong South Milwaukee team in that level 1 game, and I think Wilmot's got a good chance to win that ball game. It's going to be played at Frank Bucci Field, so you got that home court or that home field advantage. Hey, anything goes.
Hey, and Bill, from a press box standpoint, tell me Frank Bucci Field isn't one of the best press boxes or best fields or in the whole Kenosha County. I think it's the best.
The best part I like about Frank Bucci Field, they feed you up with a press box, sandwiches, a refrigerator, and drinks. But serious side, what you were talking about, Coach, you made a good point about the Waterford-Wilmot matchup. Yeah, they're going to meet again, and Wilmot had the better edge the last time, 14-10. But Waterford's a different team, guys, since that week. And you could probably say the same thing about the other matchups in the playoffs, teams meeting each other again. But the Waterford Wolverines have been on a mission since that loss. They haven't forgotten that loss, and now they get a chance to redeem themselves. It's going to be tough. They're on the road. They go to Wilmot's home place against that high prolific offense. But if you're looking at a team that's been on a roll and a mission, the Waterford Wolverines are a very dangerous team, guys.
Yeah, and since that loss to Wilmot, Bill, you're right. They ran the table, didn't lose a game, and really didn't have many close after that. All right, St. Joe's, you saw them last week, Bill. This is a team that's on a roll. They've got a tough opponent, though, in the second round in Cedar Grove, Belgium, a team they played in the very first week of the season. But I have a feeling that this St. Joe's team is much, much different from that very first week, as they should be.
They're very confident. But one thing I noticed last week in that victory on Saturday afternoon, guys, a lot of big play offense. Most of their touchdowns came on big plays. And the only problem with that is when I talked to Coach Kennedy after the game and come to some of their defensive players, they said, we love the score, but they scored so rapid, so quickly, the defense had to go back on the field. They said, whatever happened to the 8, 9, 10-play drives against Cedar Grove, Belgium, the offense, guys, has to play defense. What I mean by that, they've got to keep that big play offense off the field for Cedar Grove, and they're going to have to come up with those misdirection plays and get Madden more involved in the offense and dictate the clock and take time of possession. I think is going to be a key in that victory, especially on the road at Cedar Grove, Belgium on Friday night, where that place is going to be alive.
And Tom, this is a team in St. Joe's. When you talk about confidence, we talked about it in week 1 of football. This St. Joe's team from week 1 to now, I got to believe their confidence is sky high, and they're doing it short-manned, really.
Well, Larry, I think you're absolutely right. You know what I think about the mental aspect of playing football? When you've got confidence and you think you're capable of playing with somebody, normally you do very, very well. And the same thing about that first game we talked about. It's going to be very tough for Cedar Grove, Belgium to come up with that second victory over the same team within a 1-year period.
You bet. And, of course, the last team in, and last but not least, the Bradford Red Devils in it again, guys, and they will have their hands full. Knocked off Muskego, 3 weeks ago and 4 weeks ago now. And Bill, I'll speak to this because you were there. We were there broadcasting the game. Bradford turned the ball over 3 times.
4 times.
4 times. Swisher had 2 picks, 2 fumbles. One of them, was late in the game. And Tom nearly just gets it out of his mouth. The one thing you don't want to do right here is fumble. Swisher drops the ball. So, Bill, I'm going to ask you, you take 4 turnovers out of that game, and Bradford plays an error-free game, a turnover-free game. Can they beat this Muskego team?
No question about it. And especially now that Bradford guys was able to rest everybody, Larry, they were able to get a lot of their starters that were a little beaten up, the Coinzel Murphys, the Caberas. Zach Swisher got a short night in that victory on Friday night against Pulaski. I think they're ready, and they know they're going to have to take Muskego's best shot again. Muskego's got athletes all over the board. That Grittner is just a man among boys, wrestling champion. I mean, and they've got a quarterback that can do a lot of good things. They have an explosive defense. But for some reason, I really feel good about this game for Bradford the second time around. Coach talked about matchups again, and I'm sure he'll tell you it's hard to beat a team twice, especially in the way that game ended, Larry. Muskego in that contest had a chance to win twice at the end and drop passes.
And Tom, Muskego is going to become loaded for bear. The Warriors are going to be ready, and I have a feeling they're going to come into Jaskowitz Field Friday night. It's going to be tough.
Well, I'm glad you brought up Jaskowitz Field because I think the turf is going to be to Bradford's advantage. It's Bradford's speed and quickness against Muskego's strength and size. And I think playing at home, playing on turf, rather than on that grass field out at Muskego will be one of the benefits Bradford will have going into this game.
And Tom, that is a great point because we saw the grass, the crown field. It definitely slowed Bradford down, and Muskego's got that churning, grinding style with Simkowski and Dunlop and, of course, Grittner that Bill talked about. So you guys want to make a prediction out of this one? I think Bradford's going to win it, but I think they're going to win it very close. And I think this could be a 3 or 4 point spread in this ballgame.
28-20, Red Devils are going to win the football game, and they're going to have to hold off Muskego again late in the game, maybe 3 2-minute mark in the contest. Hold them off, stop them. The defense will come up with a big play somehow, some way to win this football game, and Bradford will again advance to the quarterfinals.
Well, I certainly hope Bradford wins it. That's obvious, and I think what's going to happen, Larry, is we're going to see that flex bone offense being used not to be explosive and score touchdowns, but to keep the ball out of the hands of Muskego.
Well, that's going to do it for this week of Pressbox. We're glad you joined us. We hope you like the format. We're going to be here each and every week and bringing you different topics throughout the seasons. And the basketball season, yes, we will cover the ladies. There's no doubt about it, so don't worry about that. But we're in the midst of a very hot football season right now. And again, Kenosha football, it's never been better, in my opinion, and I've been around here for a very long time. For Bill Fritsch, Tom Roders, I'm Larry Reitler, and thanks for joining us in the Press Box.